Have you ever wondered if that spark you feel is real or if it's all in your head? What if I told you there are clear signs that show when someone feels the exact same way you do? Because attraction isn't always loud. It's in the small, almost invisible things. And if you learn to spot them, you'll never second guess yourself again. So let's talk about 5 powerful signs of mutual attraction. These aren't games and they're not random coincidences. They're signals our minds and bodies send when we can't help but connect. Stay with me, because as you hear these, you might realize there's someone in your life who's been showing you these signs all along. Before we dive deeper, if you've ever been in that confusing space of, do they like me back? Make sure you stay until the end, because understanding these signs could save you from chasing the wrong person or finally confirm the connection you've been waiting for. There's a special kind of heaviness that comes with uncertainty in relationships. It is not the sharp pain of heartbreak or the sting of rejection, but the uneasy feeling of not knowing. Not knowing where you stand, not knowing if the other person feels the same, not knowing if what you sense is real, or only your hope, your fear, or your longing shaping your thoughts. That uncertainty eats away at your peace and lingers in your mind. It follows you through your days and keeps you awake at night. When you are truly drawn to someone, your thoughts keep searching for clarity, for confirmation, for truth. But here is what many people do not see. Mutual attraction is not always loud. It does not always come with big gestures or dramatic moments. It does not announce itself with fireworks. Often it appears quietly through small actions, through silences that feel shared, through natural harmony you cannot explain. And because it is quiet, it is easy to doubt, easy to question, easy to overlook. Yet quiet does not mean weak. The strongest bonds are often the ones that do not demand attention. They simply last, they stay, they grow, and in time they reveal the truth. Attraction is often mistaken for obsession or chemistry or even convenience, but none of these define what is mutual. What defines it is reciprocity. That is the difference. That is what changes everything. When you give and the other person gives back, not because they feel forced or because they want to play games, but because they genuinely want to, then something real begins to grow, something rare. Still, most of us are trained to doubt ourselves, to examine every text, to overthink every interaction, to create meaning where there is none, or to miss the meaning that is really there. We have become skilled at misreading our own hearts because we have stopped trusting our instincts. We live in a world that tells us to chase validation instead of genuine connection, a world that teaches us if something is not spoken out loud, then it cannot be real. But what if we slowed down? What if we stopped spinning in circles, trying to decode every move, and instead looked at the proof that lives in small but steady signs? What if instead of asking, do they like me, we asked, what does their presence in my life show me? Because truth is not only in words, but in patterns. It is not in promises, but in energy, in choices made when nobody is watching, in how they show up, and in how you feel when they are near. It shows not just in happy moments, but also in quiet ones, in vulnerable ones, in stillness. When two people feel the same, something shifts inside both of them. It is subtle but impossible to miss. They begin to move toward each other in ways they cannot fully explain. Their nervous systems feel comfort, their souls feel familiarity, their minds begin to rest more easily in each other's presence. The armor they have carried for so long begins to soften. It shows in the way conversations flow, in how time bends when you are with them, in how your thoughts drift to them even during ordinary hours. It shows when they remember the small details you mentioned, in the way they look at you as if they see something rare and unexpected, something beautiful. Attraction does not require perfection. In truth, real attraction accepts flaws. It is not about finding someone who never annoys you or always agrees with you. It is about finding someone who sees your imperfections and does not run. Someone who respects your pain and does not turn away. Someone who stays curious about your depth, not because it is simple, but because it is worth it. Mutual attraction means you do not have to prove your value over and over. You do not need to fight for attention or shrink to be accepted. You are allowed to be fully seen and still chosen, still wanted, still safe. That is rare. That is sacred, and if you have ever felt it, you know it does not happen often. That is why it is important to notice the signs, not so you can chase what is not there, but so you can recognize what is. Because when it is mutual, when two people feel the same, it creates a pull neither can ignore. They may try to hide it, they may resist it, but over time it shows itself, because truth always does. It is not just about romance or the butterflies at the start. It is about alignment. It is about energy. It is about whether this person brings you closer to who you are or pulls you away from yourself. It is about whether the bond helps you grow or makes you smaller, whether it makes you more honest or more guarded. Mutual attraction is not only a feeling, it is a rhythm, a connection, a sacred meeting between two people who notice something in each other they did not know they were missing. Once you have felt it, you will not settle for less. That is why we go deep into the signs, the clear signals that you are not imagining things, that what you feel is not just your own mind projecting, that the bond is not one-sided. These are the gestures that speak louder than words, the patterns that prove you are not alone in this. When it is real, when it is mutual, you do not need to force it. You do not need to chase it. Both of you simply know. And that knowing is where the power is. That is where peace begins. When you find yourself drawn to someone, often the first thing you notice is not something you can describe with certainty. It is a feeling, a thin, invisible thread pulling you toward them. That feeling does not appear at random. It comes from something deeper, from psychology, from biology, from shared human experience. Emotional mirroring is one of the earliest and strongest signs that mutual attraction is present between two people. It happens when your body, without effort, begins to match another person's body language, their tone, their rhythm, their gestures, even their emotional states. It is not copying to fool or manipulate. It is resonance. It is your nervous system recognizing safety in another. Human beings have always connected beyond words. Long before speech, we learned to observe, to mirror, to adapt. It is part of survival. Babies mirror the faces of their caregivers within weeks of being born. That is not something they are taught. It is built inside them. It is how we bond, how we form trust, how we begin to understand the world. And this ancient subconscious mechanism does not vanish as we grow. Instead, it matures, it adapts, and it shows itself most clearly when we are near someone we feel deeply aligned with emotionally. When two people experience real attraction, their bodies begin a conversation long before their words ever catch up. You lean forward, and they lean forward too. You cross your arms, and a few moments later, they do the same. You laugh, and before you even finish, they are already smiling. These are not rehearsed reactions, not attempts to impress, and you are not acting out a role. What is happening is a natural process called neurological attunement. Your mirror neurons, small circuits in the brain that reflect what you observe, begin to light up. In that activation, your subconscious sends you a quiet signal. This person feels safe, familiar, aligned. You are not copying them to manipulate, and they are not doing it for effect. You are both moving in sync because at a deeper level, you have found a rhythm that feels natural. At first, you may not notice it. It often begins as something you feel rather than something you see, like an ease in conversation that flows without effort, a shared laugh that feels more satisfying than usual. As awareness grows, you start catching the little reflections, the way they tilt their head as you do, how their tone softens when yours softens, how they pause exactly when you pause. This is not shallow imitation, it is emotional pacing, a sign that you are both attuned to each other's state of being. This is connection at the level of presence, not forced presence, but true presence. You are not just in the same space, you are sharing the same emotional ground. There is a difference between being heard and being truly felt. When someone mirrors you emotionally, they are not simply catching your words, they are absorbing your energy, they are shifting to meet your frequency. That kind of connection cannot be manufactured. You cannot fake it, and when you feel it, you know it. You don't need to question if they are interested. It is already written in the unspoken language of your gestures, your pauses, your tone. And this kind of mirroring goes deeper than surface behavior. It even influences how your body regulates emotion. Research shows that when two people are emotionally aligned, their heart rates can begin to match, their stress levels can shift, even their breathing breathing may fall into the same rhythm. This is not just chemistry, it is co-regulation. It means their presence literally helps calm and steady your nervous system, and the same happens for them. Together, you feel more centered than you do apart. This is why emotional mirroring is one of the strongest signs of mutual attraction, because when someone is only half engaged or emotionally distant, this kind of synchrony never happens. They might laugh politely or nod at your stories, but their body is not responding in rhythm with yours. Their energy is not moving alongside yours, and you feel that gap, that emptiness where connection should be. By contrast, when attraction is shared, the dance feels seamless. You walk beside each other and naturally fall into the same pace. You sit together and your postures reflect each other's openness or tension. You begin a sentence and they finish it, not to impress you, but because they are so tuned into your rhythm that they already sense where you are going. All of this builds a deep sense of psychological safety, because beneath every mirrored action lies a message. I see you, I feel you, I am here with you. This kind of bond does more than make you feel good in the moment. It reshapes how you see yourself. When someone mirrors your emotional world, it confirms your inner reality. It tells you your feelings are not only valid, but shared. And in a world where many people feel invisible, dismissed, or misunderstood, this type of recognition is healing. It says you are not alone, that someone is walking through the same emotional space with you, not ahead, not behind, but right beside you. That is the heart of it, beside you. Emotional mirroring is never about control or performance, never about one person leading and the other following. It is about equality, about sincerity, about two people tuning into each other with honesty and care. It is a quiet but powerful declaration. I care enough to match you, I respect you enough to move with you. That kind of unspoken harmony builds trust, builds comfort, and lays the groundwork for something real. So when you notice that kind of natural echo, when someone begins to move through the world, not apart from you, but with you, pay close attention. Do not dismiss it as chance. Do not let fear convince you that it is one-sided. Look at the patterns, notice the pacing, feel how your body and theirs seem to move in response to each other. Because the body does not lie, the nervous system does not lie. And when two nervous systems begin to mirror each other without effort, it is more than a sign. It is a signal, a deep confirmation that what you feel is not just imagined, it may also be shared. Attraction, when it is genuine, shows itself far more through action than through words. One of the most telling yet overlooked signs of true interest is consistent, voluntary presence. When someone wants to be with you, not out of obligation, not because you are chasing them, not because they are playing a game, but because something about your presence nourishes them, calms them, and draws them in, then something real is unfolding. And when that effort is reciprocated, when it flows in both directions, uncertainty begins to fade and alignment takes its place. In a world where attention spans are short and distractions are everywhere, time has become one of the rarest gifts. People rarely give it freely. They guard it, they protect it, or they waste it. But when someone chooses to give you that time, steadily and intentionally, it speaks louder than any compliment ever could. It tells you they do not just enjoy your company, they value it, they prioritize it. You begin to notice that their presence is not random but reliable. It is not something you have to beg for. It is something they freely offer. You do not need to chase someone who truly wants to be in your life. If someone is drawn to you, you will not need to pull them forward. They are already moving toward you. Real attraction is not about manipulation. It is not a strategy. It is a natural pull towards someone who feels like home. So when someone shows up for you, not only once but again and again, not only when it is easy but even when it is not, you are witnessing one of the clearest signs of emotional investment. This does not mean they will always be available every single moment. Everyone has responsibilities and limits. But there is a key difference. Someone who feels what you feel will not vanish. They won't ghost you. They won't disappear for days or weeks at a time, only to show up again with a weak, half-hearted excuse. You won't be left constantly questioning their motives. You won't be forced to live in a fog of uncertainty, wondering where they went or if they ever truly cared. People make time for what's important, And when you are important to someone, they don't just find time, they make it. Mutual attraction shows itself in patterns. If you notice someone repeatedly making space for you in their life through texts, calls, sudden visits, or even little check-ins throughout the day, that isn't random. That's them opening the door to their world for you. And if you're doing the same, it's no longer just two people talking. It's two people creating something real, something that doesn't need to be forced to exist. When presence is given freely, it feels different. It doesn't feel like you're fighting for a place in their life. It doesn't feel like you're walking on eggshells, afraid of being too much. Instead, there's a natural ease. You're not scared to reach out. You're not anxious about whether they'll respond because they always do. You don't feel like a burden. You feel like a choice. And that's where the truth of a bond lies. When someone chooses you without being required to, you begin to notice how they show up when it counts. Not just for fun, not just for light-hearted moments, but on your quiet days, your low days, when you're unsure of yourself. They're still there. Maybe they don't always have the right words. Maybe they aren't perfect in their support, but they show up. Their effort is present, and that effort is what matters most. Real connection reveals itself in effort, not in excuses. It's also worth paying attention to how steady presence affects your body and mind. When someone is truly present with you, you feel calmer, more stable, more seen. That's because consistency builds trust. It sends a signal deep into your mind. Here, I am safe. Here, I am not abandoned. Here, I am not being played with. Slowly, you begin to relax. You stop overthinking every text, every silence, every bit of distance, because the distance doesn't exist in the same way anymore. When someone is consistent, the space between you becomes comforting, not frightening. Real presence also shows up in emotional involvement. When someone feels what you feel, they are not just physically around, they are emotionally there. They ask about your day and care about your answer. They remember the little details you mentioned weeks ago. They care about your growth, your struggles, your joys. Their presence is not passive, it is active, it is thoughtful. It's as if they're saying, I see you, I hear you, you matter to me. This is where mutual attraction separates itself from shallow interest. Infatuation is fiery, but often unstable. It comes on strong, but fades when life gets complicated. Real mutual attraction, however, is steady. It doesn't depend on fantasy. It's grounded in reality. And in reality, people who care, they show up. They don't make excuses. They don't string you along. They don't pull you close only to push you away. They show up again and again because they want to, because you matter. Sometimes people will try to say with words how much they care, but the ones who truly do don't have to tell you. You feel it. You live it. You see it in the tone of their voice when they ask if you've eaten. You notice it in the way they listen when you talk about your fears. You feel it in how they stay, not because they're obligated, but because something in them feels tied to something in you. And that's when you begin to realize their presence has become a steady part of your life. Not just enjoyable, not just flattering, but solid, something you can depend on. And when your presence in their world reflects that same reliability, when you both keep returning to each other not out of fear, not out of neediness, but out of a calm, steady pull, then you stop guessing, you stop doubting, you've found common ground. And from that ground, something deep begins to grow. Connections are not built by chance. They are built by being present, by choosing one another over and over, by effort that doesn't need to be begged for, by recognizing something too meaningful to ignore. So when someone consistently shows up and you realize you're doing the same, you're no longer just hoping for a bond. You are already in one. And that's when certainty replaces confusion. That's when peace replaces doubt. There's a stage in every meaningful bond when the outside noise fades and the silence between you becomes sacred. It's no longer awkward, no longer something to fix or fill. It becomes a space where presence speaks louder than words ever could. This is the moment when you know something real is unfolding, when silence is no longer uncomfortable but filled with understanding, when pauses feel like shared breath instead of distance. That isn't random. That is the language of true attraction showing itself in its purest, quietest form. Many people overlook the strength of unspoken understanding in a world obsessed with with endless messages, explanations, and validations, we forget that the most powerful connections aren't always made with words. They're built with energy, with focus, with alignment. They're built on what's not said, but deeply felt. You sit next to someone and there's no pressure to impress. You don't feel the restless need to fill the air. You are simply there, fully there, and so are they. When attraction is real and shared, silence itself becomes a mirror of emotion. It reflects comfort, trust, and the bond that exists between you. It's no longer about entertaining each other, but about existing together side by side, in a space where both your hearts are at ease. This silence is not empty. It's full of awareness, full of unspoken feelings, full of the comfort that only comes from truth. True understanding without words doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't make you constantly wonder what they think of you, because you already feel it in the way they sit beside you, in how they glance at you without speaking, in how their body leans just slightly closer, even when no words pass. It's that quiet sense of, I get you, no explanation needed. This kind of bond is rare, and once you feel it, you can't mistake it. You can spend minutes, even hours, without much conversation, and still walk away knowing you've shared something real, because the connection speaks louder than any words ever could. Your presence itself becomes the dialogue, and when they meet that presence, when they don't rush to change the topic or try to keep things light just to fill the air, you sense that something deeper is unfolding. You both rest in the same emotional space. That's alignment. That's mutual connection. Many relationships begin with fireworks, big gestures, bold words, intense passion, but very few survive the quiet. It's in the quiet that the truth lives. It's in the quiet that you find out whether there is something real or just the illusion of closeness. And when you can sit beside someone in that quiet and feel seen instead of overlooked, safe instead of judged, connected instead of alone, that's when you know this isn't ordinary attraction. It's resonance. It also shows itself in the small, unnoticed moments when your rhythms align, when you both reach for something at the same time, when you laugh together before the punchline lands, when you share a look that says more than a whole page could, when you know what they need before they even ask. These are not random. They are emotional cues, proof that you are tuned into each other's inner world. You sense their shifts in energy, you notice the change in their tone, you feel the emotions they're trying to hide, and they do the same for you. That's not infatuation, that's not fantasy, that's real understanding. And this understanding doesn't come from trying to control or figure them out. It comes from empathy, from shared awareness, from a willingness to be fully present, not just physically, but emotionally. Most people can sit in the same space and still feel far apart. But when someone truly sees you, they meet you exactly where you are, even when you're quiet, even when you're struggling, even when you feel messy. And if you're doing the same for them, you're building something rare and meaningful.